Welcome to the Monologue Project, Voices of Color. Thank you all. This is my co-director, Melissa Berenstein.
Yeah. And this is Quinn Etchie. So I also want to thank you too, and to thank these amazing students behind us who have just been awesome to work with, and it's been a couple of wonderful months for us to get to know them, and we're so proud of them and their work. There are other students too who are part of the Monologue Project who are not performing, but they wrote pieces, and at the end of the performance we have a booklet printed of everyone's monologue. These guys, as well as the folks who wanted their work published. So we're going to give that out to everyone, and also just try to spread this wonderful booklet so we have extras to give to the schools as well. And after the monologues, we will have a question and answer period, a talk back with the audience. So on some of the seats, we have little index cards, if you're wondering what those are about, and pens. We'll be collecting questions. A microphone will also go around, so you can ask questions. And principal from Newton North High School, Henry Turner, will be leading the question and answer period at the end. So without any further ado, here they are, the Monologue Project.
My name's Anna Jones, and I'm the diversity requirement.
My name is Emily, and my story is not easy to tell.
Mon nom c'est Shanae Chatelain, et même c'est moi.
My name is Akile Ricca, and in 8th grade, I got in trouble for counting too aggressively.
My name is Luna Zhang, but everyone calls me Luna Zane.
My name is Will Thompson, and I'm qualified to say it.
My name is Katya Wade, and I hope for a time when everyone can be themselves.
My name is Joe Ray, and no, I don't listen to Kendrick.
My name is Delaney, and I am a child of an immigrant.
My name is Imani Beebled, and I am not tragically colored.
My name is Danae Lally, and sometimes I forget I am Asian.
My name is Anisha Aziz, and I don't ride tigers.
Punchline. And a boy stands there, half his face painted black, and someone says, "At least you are only an Arnold Palmer racist. You know, 'cause you're half and half." They laugh, not knowing that the punchline to their joke is standing right next to them. 'Cause, you know, sometimes looking like this means not even your friends know what jokes they can tell. 'Cause they don't know whether you are the joke or not. 'Cause no one knows whether you are the joke or not without asking. But everyone asks soon enough, "What are you?" And they never mean what grade you're in, or what position you play, or what you want to be when you grow up, or what you actually are. They want to know what color your parents are, and how they mixed to make this, and why they weren't more considerate of everyone else when they did, and why they didn't think about how uncomfortable it would make everyone to have to look at it and not know what it is. Couldn't they at least have provided you with a label or a warning sign? 'Cause you can't walk around without a collar and not expect everyone to wonder what kind of mutt you are. If you're clean enough to take home with them, if you'll perform your tricks for their friends, if you'll laugh when they tell you to. 'Cause you can't not laugh at racist jokes and not expect everyone to be offended, even if you are the joke. Even if your brother is the joke, even if your cousins are the joke, even if you are tired of laughing, tired of smiling for them. 'Cause they only want your joy, and never your sadness, your tears, no, never your anger. They want you only when you are easy to control, when you are laughing so hard you can't speak. You can't breathe. Rally. To be girl is to be sin, is to commit a crime just by being. To be a brown girl is just to be two sins wrapped up to look like one. just to be persecuted for loving yourself. Because you can't walk around like you're worth something and also be brown without everyone taking it personally. You can't walk around like you're worth something and also be brown and also be woman without everyone trying to take it away from you. Without everyone trying to cut you open just to see what color you'll bleed. They will try to take your insides as their own. Take your spine so they can make a necklace out of the strange and exotic, so they can tell you how beautiful you look when you are empty, when everything you have is theirs, how beautiful they look in your skin, how perfectly your hair curls around their head, how your lips aren't too big for their face, how nicely your tongue fits in their pocket, and your voice in their mouth. But let me tell you, your throat could never hold all I have to say. My spine will not rest so easy around someone else's neck, and I look so fucking beautiful when I am full to the brim, overflowing with my own self-worth. And you should feel free to take it personally. To try and take it away from me, to cut me open, because I will still bleed red. I will still be sin. I will still walk around like I am worth something, because I still am, and always will be.
West of Seoul, but far from home. Bogo Shipo, whispers grandmother through the telephone. It takes me more than a moment to remember how to say, I miss you too. My thick tongue is clumsy and it flops like a fat koi fish as it struggles to form the right sounds. My response time isn't quick enough, and she doesn't understand my sloppy Korean. So grandmother hangs up. My family and I were born on different sides of the sea. Miles and miles of Hokusai's great waves between, making us into strangers. Different words, different customs, different species of love. As I've grown older, these differences have become both more apparent and more problematic. One of the first colleges I got accepted into wasn't a surprise. It was only a safety, and surely I was overqualified. Despite all this, I still felt immensely proud of myself when I received my acceptance letter. In my joy, I shouted out the good news to Mom. After a brief pause, her face twisted into unmistakable disappointment. Not the honors college, she asked. And with that, I saw the great cultural canyon open up between us, right there in the kitchen. My first reaction was anger. I resented my mother, and for that, I resent myself. Perhaps the American way is too indulgent, celebrating things too small to be worth celebrating. Maybe I was wrong to expect approval for such an insignificant feat. Still, my American-born soul wouldn't stop insisting that I deserved at least a drop of praise. My American side and my Korean side are battling for dominance, and I'm lost in the chaos. I've found that the majority of my pain doesn't come from the outside world, but rather from deep within my own. It's not the chinky eyes or the disgusted looks white classmates give my school lunches that succeed in tearing me apart. Rather, it's the aching feeling that I've been ungrateful for all the opportunities my parents have fought to give me. I apologize because every single tiptoe step I take feels guilty. It's like I already take up too much space. It's the loneliness of walking through this life feeling like nobody understands. There's nothing wrong with being Korean, and being an American is an equally wonderful thing. The trouble comes when you realize you can't hold both. It becomes too heavy, things get dropped and broken, and suddenly you feel like a tiny boat on a big, unnavigable ocean. Sorry, guys. weeks ago, I found myself fumbling with a pair of chopsticks. I felt a wave of guilt trying to recall the last time I'd used them. I look across the table at my parents, who use chopsticks every single day. And in that moment, we are galaxies apart. I feel like a poser. Maybe. If I keep perfectly still, they won't realize that I'm not their daughter. They won't realize that there was a mix-up at the hospital, and the perfect Korean girl they always wanted was lost somewhere along the way. I've always been jealous of my white classmates who call their mothers their best friends. "I'm your mother, not your friend," Mom once said to me. We are not friends. All I can do is retreat back into myself because I know she'll never change. More importantly, I know it's the truth. My mother, by no fault of her own, is rooted in her ways. If I had been growing up in Korea, where formality is the norm, I don't think I'd be bothered by the lack of companionship between me and my mother. It's the fact that I'm living here, where parents smother their daughters with kisses and I love yous, that I experience this sadness. Even though I'm angry sometimes, there's no way in the world I could blame my parents for anything. They've devoted their lives to loving me, even if we don't show it in the same ways. A couple mornings ago, I snuck downstairs to find Mom. The sun was still asleep, and the house was still cold, but steam was already billowing from the cast iron skillet on the stove. I feel a wave of guilt because I hardly ever thank my mom for cooking my school lunches every morning. I instantly recognize the wonderful smell of japchae, the peppery sweet potato noodles, the earthiness of the carrot mingling with the sesame oil, the acid of the hand-washed spinach. Mom, I'm sorry that I sometimes forget that you say I love you to me every single day. Not through words, but through actions. Actions that transcend any single culture or language. I'm so sorry, Mom and Dad, forever in my life feeling bitter towards you. I know you're only doing what you can, and I promise to try harder to feel my way into your world. Thank you.
Why change for people? Race. It is something so defining. From the people you talk to and where you grew up, something so small as your name. My name. My name is Shania Chatelain, and I hated my name. I changed it from Chatelain to Chaitlin, from my name to simple, easier to say. I was so embarrassed, changed it all together. I wasn't the me I was. I was a white me. Then it went from me being embarrassed in front of teachers to them embarrassing me. A teacher, as I am waiting for my mom, comes up to me and says that I missed the bus. What bus? The Metco bus. I'm supposed to be on that bus because I was black, apparently. I can't live anywhere else. I stopped being me. People stopped letting me be me. But now I am me. Mon nom c'est Shania Chatelain et moi-même c'est moi.
Transgender. Back in the day, in late 2015, a pair of busy brown hands went to work. Whether they belong to God or my mother is still a matter of scholarly debate. Back in the day, the hands rolled out sheets of grass one by one, set the wooden bones of the sky, and crocheted blues and violets through the framework. Back in the day, in late 2015, the world cracked open. It let its yolk run, unknown, bright, and sunny, while the eggshells I had been walking on fell away. But as the sun set on my second birth, I wondered, what happens when black girl becomes black boy? What happens when you trade your silk bonnets for satin do-rags? When the swing in your hips becomes a bounce in your step, what happens when you exchange your black girl magic for black boy joy? I never thought boyhood would mend the broken bits of blackness, but a naive sliver of my heart thought it just might smooth out the rough around the edges parts. The "you're so pretty, you must be mixed" parts. The "your emotions are just a symptom of that angry black girl gene" parts. Old adages and idioms filter, fade, and flow out of style, but one rings true with a clear, high tone. The more things change, the more they stay the same. What happens when you trade calamity for calamity? When you trade being society's definition of collateral damage for being society's definition of collateral damage? The church still folds into itself, creaking its floorboards and hanging its dust when a close black life is stolen in some nameless faraway city. Cashiers still hold up your money to the light, searching for evidence of a crime your skin has already convicted you of. Strangers still reach out to touch your hair as if they think they own you. As if after all this, they think they still own you. Bitch becomes thug. Die hard dyke becomes try hard tranny, and nigga still have the same weight. But sunlight still filters through stained glass windows of the church, hanging its dust with a honey glow only found in Renaissance paintings and in the crisp harmonies of the men's choir. Drums still beat behind the piano and in the pastor's throat, and the smell of candied sweet potatoes still manages to find its way to every corner of my house. Judge Judy and Cyber Chase are still on my grandmama's Channel 4. Stones and bushes still weave around her apartment complex in Arlington, Virginia. Stones and bushes still weave around her apartment complex in Arlington, Virginia. The hot dogs at the barbecue still manage to be burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. And children, whose hair coils up towards heaven, still screech and sing, dancing unabashedly in the church parking lot. Old adages and idioms filter, fade, and flow out of style, but one rings true with a clear, high tone. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Thank you. Black History Month. I've only ever had one black teacher. According to my 9-year-old memory, Ms. Sonia Robinson was about 7 feet tall. She had long curly hair that fell down to her shoulders and a sharp, biting sense of humor. She had a nose like mine, she had skin like mine, and she stands out in my memories as one of the best teachers I've ever had. Before her, aside from our Ghana unit in 2nd grade, we had only really learned about black people during Black History Month, and it was always the same 3 people. Rosa Parks, the tired old woman who refused to move, Martin Luther King, the peaceful preacher, and George Washington Carver, the inventor of peanut butter. Before 4th grade, the only thing I really knew about the civil rights movement was that black people and white people couldn't drink from the same fountain. But Ms. Robinson went into detail. We wrote stories from the perspectives of the girls in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. We listened to grainy recordings of a charismatic DJ pushing the Children's March even after JFK rescinded his support. She showed us images of the fire hoses and the dogs, and videos of the National Mall so packed during the March on Washington, people all blended together into one large human sea. Ms. Robinson wasn't afraid to talk about modern racism either. This school has access to so many great resources. Why do you think that is? Silence. Look around this classroom. How many black kids do you see? Me and Tim Brown looked at each other, then looked back at ourselves, slowly putting the pieces together. Miss Robinson brought my blackness into context, and in turn, she sparked my love of history. The next summer, I read Roots by Alex Haley. At home in the mirror, I tried clicking my tongue like I'd heard the African women at church do, wondering if it would instinctually feel natural in my mouth. I asked my mom our family history. I started paying attention to the older people at church. It just seemed everywhere I was, there was more and more black history I just couldn't get enough of. And being the geek that I was, and still kind of am, I was really excited to learn about it in that great uncharted territory, middle school. By February of 6th grade, I was really excited to see whatever my teacher had planned. I sat down, I got my worksheet, and it was the same three people: Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and George Washington Carver. The white girl in front of me turned to her friend and said, "I hate Black History Month. We only ever learn about the same three people." She wasn't wrong. I couldn't blame her. But next year would be different, right? February of 7th grade came and went. Our ancient history textbook had a staggering 5 sentences on the Empire of Kush. Next year was American history. And if nothing happened, I decided to take matters into my own hands. By 8th grade, I had gotten in trouble for counting too aggressively. I had been dress coded for wearing the same things as white kids, even though our middle school didn't have a dress code. I had been told fixing my hair was too distracting, even though white girls the row behind me were braiding theirs. I had been asked verbatim to tone down the race stuff by my science teacher when talking to my friend about Raven-Symoné. And I'd had almost all my experiences outside of school, including Ferguson, getting racially profiled, and Costco, of all places, completely brushed off. By 8th grade, I didn't really feel like white teachers were on my side. So I didn't go to my teacher expecting much, but it still really stung when he said, "Oh, I don't have anything planned, but you could do something, because you're, fine. Better than nothing." I talked to him after school to see the people my presentation could possibly be about, and as I was listing off names, he had this blank look on his face, like he didn't know who I was talking about. I wanted to make sure I wasn't being irrational, so I said, I would love to do a history project on Calvin Broadus Jr. I just think he's so important to the Black community. "Oh, yeah, of course." For those of you who don't know, Calvin Broadus Jr. is better known by his stage name, Snoop Doggy Dogg. My history teacher green-lighted a presentation on Snoop Dogg for Black History Month. As much as I wanted to see Calvin Broadus Jr. up on the smartboard in all his glory and see my history teacher's face, I did my presentation on unsung Black heroes instead. I couldn't give up a chance to show how multifaceted Black history is. In 9th grade, our Africa unit just so happened to coincide with February. I was really excited to learn about examples of naturalism in African religion. So we watched this age-old documentary, The Lion King. I decided to leave well enough alone. 10th grade, I was getting tired of this. I went to my history teacher once again. "Are we going to do anything for Black History Month?" Black history is not really on my radar for this class. But if you wanted to do a presentation, I'd be up for it. Black history is not on your radar for a world history course? As much as I wanted to put the word radar on every slide, I fought the urge. I did my presentation on the Harlem Hellfighters, a regiment in World War I that never lost a single inch of ground or a single man in battle. We were studying World War I at the time. To be fair, teachers do have a lot to balance. I recently spoke with a teacher at North, and she enlightened me to a perspective that I wasn't really aware of before. There's standardized tests, there's a certain number of homeworks, there's unruly students. The point is, I'm not up here to roast my old teachers. I'm here to point out gaps in the history curriculum and ask why my teachers were so willing to pass me along in a never-ending cycle of, "You'll just get to it next year." In 8th grade, if we could spend a whole month doing a DBQ on the Boston Massacre, why did we only spend 2 weeks on slavery? How come none of us knew the name King Leopold until 10th grade? Why is white history a core class, and why is mine an elective? Why doesn't our curriculum accurately reflect the histories of people of all colors? Even the tokens that we had so much more to them than what we learned. Rosa Parks wasn't just a tired old woman. She was a trained activist. She was a secretary of the NAACP. She was chosen to be the face of the bus boycotts because the original inciter, Claudette Colvin, was too young, too pregnant, and too dark for the NAACP's image. Martin Luther King wasn't just a preacher. He had fire in his throat. He didn't just say he had a dream. He said a riot was a language of the unheard. He said, Thank you. He said that white moderates were more of a threat to the civil rights movement than the KKK. The FBI sent him death threats. and he still persisted to bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. George Washington Carver didn't just invent peanut butter. He made dyes, gasolines, and fabrics all out of the same plant. He was added to the British Royal Society of Arts. Theodore Roosevelt admired him. Matthew Henson was the first man to reach the North Pole. Benjamin Banneker's architecture helped sculpt the city of Washington, D.C. Marsha P. Johnson threw the shot glass that heard around the world. She kickstarted the gay rights movement and the Stonewall riots in one throw. Mary McLeod Bethune, Arthur Ashe, Shirley Chisholm, Matthew Henson. We're so much more than marches and peanut butter. Why can't our curriculum reflect that? A lot of teachers are afraid of not doing Black History Month justice, so they skip over it entirely. Elementary and middle school tokenization was tokenization, but at least it was something. What made the situation from 8th grade with Calvin Broadus Jr. so infuriating wasn't that my teacher didn't know. It was that he didn't ask. I would have been more than willing to say, oh, I'm just pulling your leg. Here's what we can really talk about. But instead, I left tight-lipped and angry. Students are here. We're willing to be resources, but year after year, when you're let down by so many teachers, it gets hard not to get cynical and not to be the first one to take that step. Imagine if I had never had Miss Robinson. I don't think that fire would be lit under me right now. If we had a history curriculum that was representative of people of all colors and not just the white ones, think of how many more fires we could light. Thank you.
Vignettes. She's 5 years old, and it's her first day of kindergarten. As she makes her first shaky steps into the classroom, a stream of thoughts run through her nervous mind. I wonder if I'll fit in. Will my English be good enough? What if I wore the wrong outfit and looked like a loser? Her eyes dart around the room. She takes in the alphabet posters, the building blocks, and the sticker charts on the wall. Then she spots her teacher and her classmates sitting in a circle, introducing themselves. Her heart begins to race, and she slowly makes her way towards the seemingly welcoming group. Yet when she finds her spot amongst her peers, she notices a confusing wave of isolation clouding over her. None of them look like me. The teacher begins the roll call, and her hands start to sweat as the list slowly inches towards her name. Luna Zhang? Pronounced Zhang, but the teacher said Zhang. No response. Luna Zhang? Here. She's mortified. Luna Zhang isn't here and never will be. Does she, Luna Zhang, correct her kindergarten teacher on her simple mistake? Or does she give in to the overpowering feeling of fear in the back of her mind, telling her to shut up and accept it? It's just a name after all, and regrettably, she chooses the latter. She's only 5 years old. A 5-year-old doesn't realize the significance of her silence, that it means giving up a part of her identity, that it means the beginning of her accommodating to the world. She's only 5 years old, and silence is the easiest choice to make, despite her underlying guilt. She just wants to be invisible, to blend in, to fit in with the crowd, even if it means losing herself. She's 12 years old, and she's awkward, angsty, but determined as ever. She's a star English student, flying through every writing assignment, always craving to express her ideas. But she's having a tough time with wrapping her head around the confusing formulas and concepts taught in her science class. It doesn't come easily to her, so she works twice as hard. She spends hours after school doing a mixture of studying, memorizing, and researching, just so she can catch up with her classmates. And it pays off. She's getting A's on her projects and hundreds on her tests. It's the most rewarding feeling, knowing that she earned it, but her classmates think otherwise. Are you kidding me? Stop smiling, Luna. You only got that grade because you're Asian. It's in your blood to succeed. She turns to complain to her teacher. Well, actually, Luna, when I was in college, I was jealous of my friend for always getting perfect grades. She was Asian, so I thought that had something to do with it. They'll never know that she spent hours working for the grades she got on her tests and projects. Instead, They use her looks to judge her, to label her, to misunderstand her. She's 12 years old, and she's frustrated. Not at their insensitive marks, but at herself. She's starting to resent herself and her looks for invalidating her achievements. She's 16 years old, and she's diving headfirst into the unfamiliar world of romance. He's everything she could have ever wanted, funny and thoughtful, with a hint of dorkiness that made him unbearably cute. He's also white, pale skin, dirty blonde hair, and hazel eyes that made her fall for him in the first place. She spends hours texting him and opening her heart to let him in. The feeling of being exposed and vulnerable to another scares her, but she's in so deep with her feelings that she decides to take the risk. After the first month, he decides to introduce her to her friends. He takes her to their favorite hangout spot in Harvard Square. Yo, man, you copped another one? Damn, we got a case of yellow fever over here. Yellow fever. It's her first time hearing this one, and at the moment she laughs off her ignorance. She runs to the bathroom to call her friend for help. Luna, that means he likes you because you're Asian. Her heart sinks as she hears the words come out of her friend's mouth. It's like a slap to the face, and she's hurt that he didn't even try to deny his friend's remark. She leaves early and cuts him out of her life. However, while her feelings for him pass with time, her resentment towards herself continued to manifest inside of her. Does he like me for me, or because I'm Asian? She finds herself asking this question constantly, as ridiculous as it sounds. She's 16 and she's wondering, would life be easier if she were white? She's 18 years old and everything's going right. She's been accepted to her top school with an amazing scholarship, and she's doing well both academically and socially at her school. She's 18 years old and she has it all together, or so it seems. Everything's going right for her, yet she finds herself feeling more lost than she ever did before. Her self-hatred continues to get the best of her, and she's constantly criticizing herself for things she can't control or change. She's finding it harder and harder to feign happiness to her friends, teachers, and family. It's like her body's betraying her and slowly breaking down the facade she's created and built up for the past 18 years. But maybe that's okay. And for the first time in 18 years, she lets herself feel it. She lets herself wallow in her world of pain, confusion, and anxiety. She lets herself accept the fact that she's not invincible and that she's human. She's human, and she's had a lot of shit happen to her, and it's broken her. But for once, she's accepting her reality and answering her body's cry for help. The best decision she's ever made in a long time. She's now learning to ask for help and to be dependent. She's starting to let others accommodate to her and to speak up for herself. She's 18 years old, and she's going through the most turbulent phase in her life. But instead of running away from it, she's facing it head on. She, Luna Zhang, is discovering herself and her authenticity and learning to love all of who she is, the imperfections included.
The N-word. Hey, so, can I say it? You know, the N-word. You know where that word originates from, right? That word was conjured up by white slave owners to degrade, discourage, and deter their helpless slaves. You know where that word means, right? That word was made up to describe subhumans, animals, beasts. Not your black friend. You must not realize that my ancestors were called that so much that that's what they thought they were. Niggas. And I hear you in the back. It doesn't mean that anymore. It means like homie now, right? It was reclaimed. You have nothing to reclaim. It was your ancestors' word of hatred. So much hate, some of us cringe now when we hear it. I know I do. Nigger. It's funny though, I feel like if you have to ask to say something you know you shouldn't, like in the back of your head, you know it's taboo. But what if I'm singing along to a song? That's okay, right? Really? It's that important to you to finish a song? And even if you were qualified, why would you want that? You want to be black in America? Where you can't walk to the corner store without being shot, where you can't shop without being monitored, where you don't get the benefit in the doubt? You don't want that. You don't want the burden that comes with the N-word. So you can say it, and I can't? That's not fair. It's not fair that my ancestors were in chains for 250 years. They spent their entire lives as chattel. So did their children, and their children after that. And then finally, when their freedom was granted, their rights were still deprived. That's not fair. It's cool though, right? Doesn't mean what it used to mean. The hate, ugliness, stigma, it's gone. The comical thing is, we finally have something you want. And it was yours all along. Too bad it's not yours anymore. So no, you can't say it, is what I should have said. Yeah, you could say it.
I am Katya. Since I moved around a lot when I was younger, I was exposed to many different people and ideas. One of the most memorable and distinctive places was a town called Monroe in North Carolina, where I lived until 7th grade. In 5th grade, for recess, we were allowed on what was known as the blacktop. All around the asphalt were scattered chalk courts of Foursquare that everyone would gravitate to when released from class. I, like all the unlucky kids who couldn't make it in time, was waiting in line for my turn in the squares. Once people had come and gone and it was my turn to play, I excitedly jumped into the square to face the king. The king in Foursquare holds all the power and calls all the shots. Unfortunately for me, the king who was in position during my turn to play was all too willing to use his very real and coveted power. As I stood there, awaiting his call to start, I heard the words that will haunt me forever. The kid told me that I didn't belong here and that I needed to go back to where I came from. As a naive 10-year-old, I wasn't exactly sure what he meant, but I knew it wasn't good. These words, as harmless as they seem, made me feel like I didn't belong anywhere, like there was no place in the world for me. These little words held so much power and flipped a switch within me. For a long time, I was so distraught and confused. When I asked my mom about it, she told me that some people have different opinions about people like us, and that since it's a mean and dumb opinion, I should just ignore the kid. I did as she suggested, but was still confused about one thing. Who are the people like us? I was born in the US. I'm not any different than the kid or anyone else at the school. I like to think that the kid was just confused and misinformed. I like to think that anyone who judges someone based on their skin color or outward appearance is misguided. Looking back at it now, I realize that the kid knew exactly what he was saying. He chose those words to hurt me and make me feel bad about myself. And that's exactly what I did. After that day, I stopped really openly sharing my family history. I stopped telling people that my mom immigrated here when she was young with her family. I stopped telling people that my dad was born in Lebanon and moved here when he was older to get a job and have a better life. I stopped telling people that most of my family don't even speak English. At one point, I was even ashamed of my own name because it wasn't like everyone else's. Whenever I played a game with my friends where I had to choose a name for myself, it was never Katya, no. It was always Catherine or Katie or some other name like that. I didn't want to be different. I wanted to be just like everyone else at my elementary school. Light-skinned, with family that lives right there in that same little town with me. I opened up again through moving around and experiencing new and different things. Moving here to Newton also helped me see the beauty and difference and uniqueness. I finally realized that I can't hide behind this idea that being different is a bad thing. I realized that I have to accept who I truly am. Although this is still a work in progress, I am now glad to say that I'm not like everyone else. I'm Katya Khaled-Obeid, half Colombian, half Lebanese.
Unique. You don't listen to Kendrick? You're not that dark. Your hair is curly. You must not be black. These are just some of the things that I hear. Since when did my hair texture, my skin tone, and even favorite music artists define my race? I didn't know my hair had to be nappy or my skin had to be super dark to qualify as black. People have a locked-in image of every race, thinking everyone within their race all looks, dresses, even sounds the same. And when they're faced with somebody that doesn't quite fit that picture, they're quick to judge, which is not okay. When in reality, we each are very unique, which makes us better in our own way. So no, I don't listen to Kendrick. So yes, my hair is curly. So no, I'm not that dark. Yes, I am black.
Define American. I will build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will make Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words. I have always been my grandmother's favorite child. She always spends the most money on me during Christmas, and I'd awkwardly sit among my cousins as I'd open Barbie dolls, princess tiaras, and sparkly pink nail polish. My grandmother always requests to speak to me when she calls my home. She questions my grades, my boyfriends, and my college. I don't dare to mention the girl I'm seeing or even attempt to correct her when she confuses University of Hartford with Harvard. To her, I am perfect, and she hears what she wants to. My parents used to send me to her apartment complex in Cuba, Miami for weeks during the summer. My grandmother would dress me up and then parade me around to all the other grandmothers. "Esta es tu nieta?" they asked in disbelief, leaning down and getting so close to my face that I could see the red lipstick on their stained teeth. "Ah, qué linda," they exclaimed, when they finally seemed convinced. "Una princesa." On Saturdays, I was taken to the Dolphin Mall. We would walk by all of the outlets and cheap stores and go directly to Forever 21. According to my grandmother, it was the only store in the mall that was for pretty girls. It took me a long time to realize that what she meant by pretty was white. We would stalk by the Marshalls, the outlets, and the other stores, and she carried my shopping bags in pride. The tiny shirts and floral skirts signified accomplishments. It showed that we were better. We ate at the Cheesecake Factory instead of the mall's food court. I wasn't allowed to have a kids menu or order anything that she didn't approve of. Whenever I reached for the bread, she slapped my hand away, then tell me once again to sit like a lady. I was never allowed to play in the playground in the middle of the food court, despite my constant begging. Once after my 7-year-old self cried in protest, my grandmother roughly grabbed my arm and pulled me away. "Es para los pobres," she hissed. "It is for the poor." My family is a line of people immigrating to other countries. My great-grandfather fled Nazi Germany to Cuba. My great-grandmother fled from Argentina under the dictatorship of Perón to Cuba. And her father fled from the dictatorship of Franco in Spain. My grandparents met in Cuba and escaped the dictatorship of Fidel Castro. And it was in Mexico in which my mother was born and in Miami, Florida when she was raised. I was born and raised in America with all of this culture intertwined. I am everything and therefore nothing. I have no way of claiming an identity because I am so many series of immigration. And that is why I define myself as American. A mixture of colors, races, languages, religions, and ideals. My identity is a rich mix of a fight for freedom. This is what it means to be American. To be an American is to be a mixture, but who gets to be American? My white skin gives me that privilege. I can proudly walk around claiming I am Cuban and feel comfortable and included because of my long blonde hair and skinny white waist. Why is this? What gives me the right to proudly claim I am American? Why is my best friend, who has darker curly hair and tan skin, claimed as Hispanic and I am not? Why? Why do you follow us around in Sephora as if we are bound to steal? We see you. We see your stares. And we need to stop labeling by physical appearance. Why is it that my grandmother shielded me from the poor? Why is there such a need for separation? Does shopping at Forever 21 really make me more American? I think not. Stop praising me for my skin. I am no better, and I demand equality.
A skin deep view. Picture two girls standing in a glass box side by side. Girl A is tall, skinny, pale skin with long brown hair and freckles. Girl B, short, smooth brown skin and kinky short hair. Now, which one do you think is prettier? I realize this scenario may sound bizarre, but do you want to know a secret? This happened to me. And it changed the way I saw myself in relation to the other girls around me and my view of the entire world. My best friend at the time, Anya, who was 10 years old, and I, only 8, thought that we were models and that one day we'd be famous together. So for practice, we'd go to the mall and pose in the windows of the stores with the mannequins to see people's reactions, like, Well, one day we were at the Arsenal Mall and we decided to pose in the windows of the Gap. Just then, 2 old white women passed by and stopped in front of us. And of course, they chuckled at the sight of these 2 little girls thinking they were grown women. The first woman said, "Oh, they are too cute." The second one pointed right at Anya and said, "I pick that one." Well, the first woman happily agreed with her friend, and through her endless chortling, she said, "Yes, she is beautiful. She looks like such a model." After they'd had our fill of entertainment, I had wondered why these women had pointed at her, looked at her, preferred her. I mean, what did she have that I didn't? What did they see that I couldn't? I questioned if I was even seen as beautiful. What is beautiful, and who gets to define that beauty? But at 8 years old, the opinions of others can influence how you see yourself and whether you can love what you see or grow to despise it. What these women could not know was that their comments, coupled with the subliminal messages from media, built up over the years like pennies in a jar. And now those pennies fall from that jar like the endless tears from her cheeks every time she takes a look in the mirror. They didn't see the beating, hitting, prying she does at her skin, praying it's just a surface layer she can pick off. They don't understand that their comments are microaggressions. And like a magnifying glass, they zoom so far in on her imperfections that she no longer sees a person, but rather the distortion the stereotypes label her as. And like little shards of broken glass, impossible to put back together into something beautiful, she lives with this broken image of herself. She can't accept the words beautiful, intelligent, important, but rather ugly, disgusting, and insignificant. These words only harden and mar what little self-esteem she has left. It took me 7 years to finally become comfortable with who I am. 7. And even though I've come a long way, there's still a ways I have to go. But if you were these women, if you got to define beauty, if you were the one to decide what makes a model, which girl do you pick? Or do you pick at all? Black girl, never quite understood, always alone, never apart. Black girl, she's too dark, not dark enough. She's too skinny, not skinny enough. Black girl, why do you wear your hair like that? Why are you always angry? Don't you know racism is over? Black girl, you will never be good enough. This world is not yours for the taking. Black girl, stop overreacting. Black lives don't matter. Black girl, oh poor black girl, you are still just a nigga. You are still just a slave. Black girl, stop calling me that. Black girl, isn't that your name? Black girl? No, that's not who I am. Oh, black girl. Black girl? Yes. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Crab Rangoon. While I love Chinese takeout, the name can be a bit deceiving, since many famous Chinese dishes aren't actually Chinese. Take crab rangoons, for example. They can barely pass as a deep-fried cousin of the more authentic Chinese dumpling. But with the crispy outer layer, they are unique. They try to act Chinese, although they live in America and are cooked for Americans. Once when I was in 5th grade, I was at my friend Gina's house when the phone rang. Gina sprinted to the phone and fumbled to answer it. Much to my dismay, it was not some famous celebrity. It was just a plain old boy. Yet, on hearing that we were dealing with issues involving boys, my shoulders straightened, my chin lifted, and to my shame, I couldn't help trying to act more cool. When I heard Gina tell him, "I'm the only blue-eyed blonde here. I'm with an Asian," my chin dropped, my brows furrowed, and I was about to say, "Hey, I'm not." But that would be a lie, because I am just like a crab rangoon. I am 100% Chinese, but I grew up in a white family and was raised as a white child since I am adopted from China when I was 18 months old. Growing up in a white family does not change the fact that I am Chinese, something I was made painfully aware of. What Gina said that day left me with a mix of emotions, guilt being the strongest. I was upset with Gina for reducing me to my race. I was upset because I had a sinking feeling in my stomach from knowing that the boy would probably think of me as uncool because I wasn't like Gina. I was confused about why I thought he would think I was uncool. But mostly, I felt guilty for briefly feeling ashamed that I am Asian. I have plenty of Asian American and white friends, but as I learned more about my identity, I realized I don't completely identify with most Chinese Americans. If you took a Chinese dumpling-loving girl and an American-raised girl fascinated with all things deep-fried and mixed them together, the result is me, the crab rangoon. I am a fully Chinese person, cooked a little too American to pass off as authentic Chinese cuisine.
Instead, I am something much greater. I am my own unique Chinese American self. I'm a mix of different flavors, creating a whole new taste that is just as good as the original. When I eat a crab rangoon, I can hear it crunch as flakes of toasted salty goodness rain onto my tongue. The American fried outer layer supports the gooey inside with bits of crab meat inside. Once you get past the initial crunchy hardness, there lies a whole new world within, a world made out of the thick, rich interior. When I bite into the belly of the rangoon, my mouth reaches its personal heaven. I can taste the creamy, chewy goodness of the crab rangoon. The best part of a crab rangoon is the inside, and so I've learned that the most important part of my identity is my personality. It doesn't matter if I look Chinese, because I am proud of my history and my racial identity. What I do is I love it, I embrace it, I ignore the boy, and I just be me.
Winter. Oh, how much I pity you. You're a child that doesn't adore their own reflection. A drug addict that's addicted to looking like a mannequin. Your kryptonite is a lighter skin tone. Why inspired to have straight hair when your curls are popping? Why inspired to be them when they tan to be you? Oh, how much I pity you. May the seasons change while you age. Thank you.
My name is Anna Jones, and I am full to the brim, overflowing with my own self-worth.
My name is Emily, and I want my parents to know how grateful I am.
My name is Akile, and I'm transgender, I'm black, and I refuse to be quiet.
My name is Will, and I can hear you in the back.
My name is Katya, and I am half Colombian, half Lebanese.
My name is Torre, and yes, I am black.
I'm Lainey and I'm ally.
I am Imani Bugle, and I have cried for the girl I once was, and I commend who I am now.
I am Danae, and I define my own identity.
My name is Anisha, and I will accomplish my dreams without giving up.